The Taming of Coyote, Chapter 7. It was to be a big morning. Everything was ready for sunrise. All that stood between then and now was the night of good rest. However, not everyone could sleep so soundly or happily that night. For two souls, the night only brought a dark restlessness. Sonya flipped and flopped from side to side. No matter how much she tossed and turned, there was no comfort to be gotten. She just couldn't make herself sleep. She just couldn't forget that poor, helpless animal in the square, unknowingly awaiting his death. She sat up and brought her knees to her chest and held them close. She wanted to cry. How could everyone be so cold to that poor animal? It wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair. If only there was something that she could do. But what could she do? And what would people say? They'd call her a witch. She just knew it. They'd compare her to Lorraine. They'd punish her, she was sure of it. They could even kill her if Lord Grundle was angry enough. However, in her heart, she felt that Coyote had just as much right to live as anyone else. However, her heart could cost her her life. After much thought, she still couldn't bring herself to let it go. She found herself trying to map the whole process out. What if no one knew that it was her? What if she escaped turn? However, would she be safe in care? Would she be able to survive in the woods all alone? She had no home, no gun, and no skills out there. She'd have no tools and no companionship. Still, her life in turn, under the hand of Lord Grundle. It would be like this always, wouldn't it? Sooner or later, if she believed in her own feelings, the conformed community would single her out. She'd bring shame to her family, another wicked stain on their bloodline. All of this for a coyote? Was it even worth it? It was. It was worth the risk. Sonya tossed her covers from the bed and ran to her dresser. She pulled off her nightgown and dressed herself in a comfortable dress, put on her work shoes, tied up her hair in auburn ribbons, and grabbed her shawl. For now it was warm outside, but there was no telling when the weather would start getting cold or the nights chilly. She had never done anything like this before. Nothing so blasphemous. In the eyes of Lord Grundle, she was about to commit a sin. She was about to assist a servant of the devil that plagued turn. However, she would not reconsider. After seeing that fear and sadness in the coyote's eyes burned into her mind, she just couldn't pretend not to see. He needed her. It took longer to get to the square than Sonya had anticipated. It was dark outside and travel was far more difficult. The only source of light was the moon and the candle lamp that she had brought with her. She kept it low so as not to draw any attention to herself should anyone still be awake. Caution was key. Once in the square, Sonya took a quick look around. Lamps flaming on controlled posts lighted the square. She was able to set down her candle lamp and finally regain the use of both of her hands. She had never been out here at night and was unsure if there was a night watch. Boy, she sure hoped not. That would only complicate matters further. Luckily, though, it seemed that no one was about. That was good. That was very good. Upon the scaffold was the crate. Everything was set for the morning sacrifice. It brought a sickening feeling to the pit of her stomach. The feeling brought her closer to the crate. She heard a small whine. He knew that she was coming. He was curious and nervous. These humans weren't very friendly. There was no telling what was going to happen now. "Hello?" Sonya whispered as she pressed herself against the crate. She could hear him whining on the inside. She could even hear his tail thumping. "Be quiet, little fella. I'm going to get you out of here. Then you run as deep into the woods as you can and hide." With that, she began to pull at the front, but no matter how hard she fought and pulled, it wouldn't open. The lock was tight, and there was no escape. There was no telling who had the key. "Damn!" she hissed. This wasn't going well. Now what was she going to do? The notion came to mind to simply give it up. There was just no way to open the crate, pure and simple. Maybe it was a stupid idea anyway. Still, that was no consolation. How could she just leave him to die? No. No! She just couldn't. She had to help him. Somehow. She just had to. Sonia looked around in hopes to find some sort of sign or an answer to her problem. Silently she prayed. She pleaded in her heart for God to have mercy, to take pity on the poor animal, and to help him to freedom. Then it came to her. Her eyes fell on the smithy not too far away. The smith had long since been gone for the day, and his tools were now accessible. It was just a matter of choosing the right tool for the job. She couldn't ask for advice on the matter. Not only was no one present, but also no one would have been able to see it from her point of view. No, she'd have to go it alone. All of the smith's tools seemed heavy. It was no wonder that he was such a large and muscular man. Sonia almost wondered if she would even be able to carry the tool of her choice. The hammer. If she could not open the lock, then perhaps she could break it. Yes, that could just very well be the plan to work. Quickly, she ran to the smithy to grab the hammer. With every ounce of strength she had, she dragged the heavy tool across the square and up the scaffold. It was very heavy. At least she was expecting it. She was no Samson, but she was determined to put everything she had into this rescue. Once back onto the scaffold, she tapped the back of the crate. "Hey! Hey, back here, boy!" The coyote responded obediently. He pushed himself to the back of the crate. He continued to thump his tail as he poked his nose out to touch Sonia's hand. "Just stay back here, boy. I don't want to hit you by accident. We'd be in even bigger trouble then." The coyote sat himself down and licked at his lips nervously. He flattened his ears with a whine. Sonia examined the lock in the front of the crate one last time. She was sure the hammer would do the job. With great strength and determination, she raised the smith's hammer and brought it down hard with every ounce of her being. Her prayers and determination worked. The lock was broken, and it fell from the crate. The coyote let out a yelp. Such a loud crashing and breaking sound was scary. He cowered in the corner of the crate as Sonia opened the front. "Come on, boy! You need to get out of here! Go! Now! Hurry!" "What was that?" a man shouted. Sonia gasped. There was a night watch. She turned back to the crate and frantically began to flail her arms about. The coyote, unsure what this strange posturing meant, let out a yelp and flew across the square to make his escape. "The woodland devil got loose!" she heard a second man call. This was bad. This was very bad. She looked around in a panic for a place to hide. They just could not be permitted to see her. There was no telling what would happen if the night watch caught her. In an instant, Sonia ran for the wagons and dove into one of them. She peeked out from under the cover as one of the night watchmen ran past. She could see the coyote hop the fence and vanish into the woods. He had a nice little head start, and it was dark. The odds seemed to be in his favor, much to her relief. Still, there was no promise that he'd get away. Just speculation. If the night watch caught him, there was no telling what horrible things that poor thing would suffer. There was also no telling what they would do to her if they found her in the square and suspected her to be involved. So she decided to simply stay hunched down and wait until the coast was clear. In due time, she fell asleep.